NES style games are dime a dozen these days. However, few can catch the spirit of those past days. This is not the case with this game. It looks, plays and sounds like a NES game. I'm talking about The Adventures of Poppe. I hope that's how you pronounce the name. Just from the screenshots, the game managed to transport me back to my childhood and my Terminator 2 console. What drew me to the game was this section in a kitchen. It immediately reminded me of Batman and the Flash, Monsters in My Pocket by Konami, released in 1992 because there is a similar level to this. Also Tom and Jerry from 1991 because of the sense of scale. It actually applies to both games. I just found that Batman and the Flash game was an illegal ROM hack sold in Asia and somehow ended up in Eastern Europe during the 90s. Anyway, let's see if the game is NES worthy. Also, the key for the game was provided by the developer. Much appreciated. There isn't much of a story. What you see in the first couple of seconds is basically it, and that's perfectly fine. By the end of the game you find that your daughter is missing, so you have some motivation to explore the final few sections of the game. But honestly, I don't need some incentive if the gameplay is any good. And it is. At its core, the game is 2D platformer with heavy emphasis on exploration and action. In the beginning you can only jump and attack. It starts simple, but with exploration you gain more tools to help you out. Controls are rock solid as far as a controller goes. I never tried playing it with keyboard. The downside people might say here is that you can't rebind them. However, they were intuitive to me, so I didn't have the need to change them. For better or worse, this is an NES style game. It's definitely inherited some of the quirks from the games of that era. One thing I dislike is when you get hit, you get knocked back, similar to Castlevania, albeit not that harsh. You have some invisibility frames to recover and move out of danger. Take that, Castlevania. Another thing which I'm on the fence of liking it or not is the character control. It feels strange. I like the controls in general, but hear me out. You know how each 2D platformer nowadays have this smooth feeling when you play it, and suddenly you are thrown in a NES style retro platformer. It feels kinda clunky, just a bit, but it's not. It's by design and I respect that. With time I got better and the feeling of clunkiness was almost gone. This leads to the difficulty. The game is hard but fair. It requires precision and every hit you take is entirely your fault. With two exceptions, enemies don't attack you. They're on a set movement pattern, left and right or up or down. So hitting them or avoiding them, it's up to you. You have great controls over your character, even in the air. Holding the direction will maximize your jump, but releasing it early drops you down in a slight arc. One of the things I really like is that killing enemies has a point, and that's the point. Each enemy gives you, well, points for killing them. I was thinking of skipping fighting them where I can until I got a life for reaching certain score. I see it as a high risk, high reward situation. Because the game is hard, you need all the lives you can get. They're so hidden around the game, but if you are anything like me, the more the merrier. I didn't read or look up anything about the game beside one trailer. I wanted to go blindly as I can. What surprised me is that it was also a Metroidvania. This means secret hunting, big interconnected world, getting more powerful, getting new abilities, or in this case tools, etc. Here is the catch. Navigating through the world is not always intuitive as any other modern Metroidvania. You don't have that many shortcuts to unlock, so this can lead to some unnecessary and long backtracking. To be fair, the world is not massive and you'll remember the layout, but adding some additional shortcuts would improve the flow significantly. Now when you get the additional tools, backtracking becomes more tolerable, but until you reach that point, it can get a bit tedious. Speaking of flow, like any Metroidvania, you get some tools to make gameplay more enjoyable. You have a small inventory that you will hold 4 permanent upgrades and 3 one-time use items. They are usually something that allow you to move forward or give to an NPC that in return will give you a new item. At first you won't have to choose what to carry, but later in the game you have 1 or 2 more, so deciding what to hold is tricky. It's not always obvious. This can also extend the backtracking, especially if you drop the item at the wrong place. In relation to all the talk about flow, backtracking, etc., I spoke in the last few minutes lies my biggest issue. Early on, you find an NPC that just stands there and he is not interactable. A couple of hours later, I found that I need to give him a compass, so he can give me a cloth to use as a parachute. Two things here. All NPCs that require something will have a speech bubble to show it. This one doesn't have. I don't know if this was a bug, but it doesn't matter. This needs fixing. It confused me and might happen to others. By the time of releasing of the video, this might be obsolete, so keep that in mind. The second thing is the amount of backtracking I had to do to reach him. There were no shortcuts. This was annoying to say the least. Besides hunting for the next item to let you progress, there are 4 other things you collect. Potions to restore your health, these hands that will increase the damage you do, crystal hearts that will increase your health permanently, and lives. Some are teasing you just out of reach, others are very well hidden. There is some out-of-the-box thinking you need to do to reach some of them, and I love it. Exploration is heavily incentivized and required. You need all the upgrades you can find because the game gets tougher as you go deeper and deeper. Fighting is just a simple slash, but the diversity in action comes from the enemies. They start simple, like this caterpillar that moves left and right. But going further into the game, enemies require a bit of a different approach. Not something mind-blowing, of course. This beetle can be damaged only from behind. The bad bug can't be killed. It turns on his back when you hit it, and you have very short time to move past it. The most difficult was this flea. It doesn't act like the others. It jumps and chases you. You can't go over it or under it. But the way I dealt with the flea used the environment so the bug can get stuck there. However, hitting one enemy will stagger him. And this is the approach to almost all enemies. They are adorable. Not the mosquito. They have an evil face. But just look at this caterpillar. Those eyes. So innocent. The combat is not deep but functional and fun. I probably sound too negative, but the game was addicting. Every day after work I sat down to play. The gameplay is solid, the world is interesting. You play as Poppe, and he is big as a spider or other household creatures, and you explore everyday sites. Different parts of a forest, a house that's split in multiple sections, the basement looks like a dungeon. It's an interesting perspective. The graphics are solid, NES style pixel art, but cleaner and sharper. Sound effects are good, but I don't know why when you pick up an item, you hear an opening of soda can. I was not fan of the music. It's not annoying, I just find it weird for some reason. And you can't beat the price. You get 6 to 8 hours of gameplay time. It's definitely worth a B.